are in the era of the remake and the remaster. As console generations get longer and technology improves, it makes sense for big game companies like Sony or Nintendo to give longtime fans what they want by reminding them of what they love from their past. Ports are a huge part of this industry lately, and the Nintendo Switch has proven that if you can port it to the console, millions upon millions of people will buy it. And then there's the remake side of things too, where developers make an effort to spruce up an existing game or a beloved classic with new graphics or features, and sometimes even additional content or a whole new story add-on. Recent examples on the Switch include Advance Wars Reboot Camp and Super Mario RPG, which made an effort to revitalize well-loved games for a whole new generation of players. But then there's today's game, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, a remake of a 2004 Game Boy Advance puzzle platformer. This game may seem familiar to Completionist fans because I did a video on it originally a few years ago. The big question is, who asked for this? Why does it cost $50? And is it still as much fun and rewarding to complete as the original game was? Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. And today, we're completing Mario vs. Donkey Kong, the remake.
Yes! All glory goes to the winner!
When I played the original Game Boy Advance version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong several years ago, I overall greatly enjoyed the experience. I called it a perfect portable puzzle game and gave it my completionist rating of complete it. Its bite-sized levels, satisfying puzzles, and many completion rewards made it kind of a no-brainer for fans of Nintendo's old-school arcade output. If you like the original Donkey Kong arcade game, or especially Donkey Kong games for the Game Boy, Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance was a slam dunk. And as I completed this one, I had a couple of thoughts rolling around in my head the entire time. Why remake this game? Who is this for? Don't get me wrong, this remake is lovingly done and honestly very fun to play because the original game is still too. Mechanic wise, this version of the game is almost exactly the same as that one. In Mario vs. Donkey Kong, your goal is to guide Mario through different worlds, chasing Donkey Kong through multiple levels. Why is he chasing Donkey Kong? Because DK saw a commercial on TV advertising mini Mario wind-up toys, and he became so obsessed with them that he raided the factory and stole them all because they were all sold out everywhere he'd go. And honestly, DK, I get it. These toys are awesome and I'd want to rush out and get one too if I could. And apparently Mario's got to protect his likeness, so he collects every mini Mario across every world and puts them back in the toy box. And then fights DK by hucking barrels or whatever else nearby at him. And that's basically it. That's the story. A simple, funny premise that evokes the classic rivalry between Plumber and Ape. It's a very neatly structured game. The original Game Boy version had 6 main worlds with 6+ worlds unlocked once you beat the main campaign. And then the expert levels on top of that for a total of 104 levels to navigate through. Each level had 3 presents to collect, and the game had a scoring system that would reward you with gold stars if you were able to reach the high score by finishing levels quickly and efficiently. There were also bonus mini games where you could earn extra lives, which was good because there is a lot of trial and error, and a single touch from an enemy will kill you. But you weren't doing the traditional Mario acrobatics and running around to achieve your goals. Instead, you were hitting switches, riding on moving enemies, or smashing through flames with a hammer on the road to DK. Mario's got a basic jump, or you can give yourself a boost with the handstand or double jump, even a sideways jump when you run, and you can lift and throw enemies and items a la Super Mario Bros. 2. The game was great because the puzzles, even though they were very linear, felt very satisfying to solve and execute. The remake keeps that feeling intact, with a few new twists. There are now 8 worlds, up from the original 6, and a few new modes to mess around with. Each world has 6 main levels broken up into 2 short halves, with 3 colored presents to collect across both halves. After the 6 main levels in a given world, you can then do the mini Mario levels, where you lead the mini Marios you found back to their toy box and collect the letters TOY. And finally, there are the DK boss fights that cap off each world. Now that's the main structure of the base game, but completionists are after far more than just the basic levels. Nintendo also added an unlockable time attack mode, which becomes playable after you beat the main campaign. New features include the casual mode, which takes away the timer system and adds checkpoints to levels, just in case you want the game to be a little bit easier. Not that there wasn't a lot of love and care poured into this remake. I wasn't really a fan of the art direction of the GBA game to begin with. I think it looks a little mushy and muddled, though the animations, especially the handstand and the backflip, are pretty great, and the cutscenes and voice clips were very charming. This remake looks clean, shiny, and smooth. It's not the same art style as 2023 Super Mario Bros. Wonder or the Super Mario RPG remake. Instead, it reminded me a bit of the new Super Mario Bros. Series or parts of Super Mario Maker. Basically, it looks like an HD Mario side-scroller, an aesthetic that is pretty much timeless at this point. The opening cutscene is just as weird and charming as ever, featuring Shy Guy news anchors and strange commercials for bananas and toys. I like the absurdity, and that there's really no build-up whatsoever. You're just kind of thrown in. I guess you could make an argument that the GBA cutscenes and voice samples are a little bit more charming, but I like the clean-up look and the feel of the remake. The soundtrack is one of the best points of this game. Where Mario and DK go, great music follows. And that's definitely true here. It's jazzy, it's jaunty. It's just what you want in an adventure like this. Very easy to listen to on repeat for sure. And trust me, you're gonna listen to it on repeat a lot. They changed some of the unlocks in the remake too, and in my opinion, it makes the game a lot easier. Both the original and the remake reward the player with gold stars for finishing a level perfectly. In the original, you had to collect every present and hit a certain threshold by doing things quickly. The remake takes out the scoring for each level. You can now earn a gold star just by collecting all 3 presents in every level, and as long as you don't touch an enemy or die, you're probably in the clear. The limited gameplay and simple control scheme remains really well designed, and the updated graphics and music as well as the new modes are a decent enough reason to return to it. But I still find myself asking the question, is this game worth $50 for the average Nintendo fan, let alone average player? At what is probably the tail end of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle? It's kind of a big ask, but I do think this remake adds enough to make the experience somewhat worthwhile. One of my favorite things about the original was how much it rewarded the player the more they completed. This game follows a similar trajectory. There's a lot to complete, but you also unlock a bunch as you go along. You've got your classic viewing gallery, which you can watch all the cutscenes you've seen throughout the game, which is a fun little bonus. Beating the main game, which took a little over 4 hours for me of painless playtime, unlocks expert mode. There are 16 expert mode stages. You unlock 8 of them just for beating the game, but then there are 8 more for earning all 128 gold stars. So being a completionist on your first playthrough is definitely worth it. Also, finishing the base game will unlock the time attack mode I mentioned earlier, which means you have to replay all of the main stages all over again, beating a certain time to fill in a gold circle that appears on each stage now. This adds a lot to the replayability of the game, though it can be a bit repetitive. The challenge this adds to the overall experience is real though. The challenge this adds to the overall experience is not too bad, but it's also not that simple. Even the very first stage asks you to beat it in under 18 seconds to earn that medal. Now, the plus levels also make a return in this game. These are basically remixes of the original worlds with new objectives that require you to lead Mini Mario through levels safely. I would say that these are more difficult than the base game and serve as a way to break up the gameplay feel. This keeps the game feeling fresh all the way through, even if you've played through 100 levels more than once at this point. I like that the game throws new types of puzzles to the player even this late into the experience. The difficulty curve is pretty consistent for the base game and builds up pretty well to the unlockable harder content. I also like the 2 new worlds that have been added to the base game, Merry Mini Land and Slippery Summit. They fit the game so well, I honestly thought they were in the original Game Boy Advance version. So props to the designers for coming up with new puzzles that fit the gameplay and style of Mario vs. Donkey Kong without feeling shoehorned in. So I talked about what beating the base game unlocks for you. What about beating the plus worlds? What about the expert stages? Do you get any kind of big super secret rewards for completing all the extra stages and the time attack mode? Sadly, no. Completing the remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong doesn't get you anything extra of a special menu or anything like that, sadly. What you do get is a golden icon next to your game save file saying you did everything. But again, I do want to break down to you what this all entails. The base game is 64 stages. The plus game is an additional 54 stages. The expert stages are 16 stages. You have to earn 128 gold medals to unlock all the expert stages. You have to do time attack on every single stage, which requires you to learn the stages inside and out, and not only get all the gifts, but also the time attack modes. With all that said, I really wish there was some kind of extra thing you got. This was the same for the original Game Boy Advance version, but I enjoyed the experience so much that I still gave it a completed rating. There's a lot to do here and it's a fun time. But if you're looking for a cherry on top of this completionist sundae, you're not gonna find it here. All told, this entire completion experience took me around 8 to 9 hours. It's still really enjoyable to complete, a perfect balance of satisfying puzzle gameplay and simple platforming. It's certainly a little easier than the original game for sure, but I think that difficulty is balanced out by having more levels on the whole. Time and hindsight together, I really should have given my original review of the game a finish it. And the same with this one. It does start to feel a little repetitive towards the end of your journey, especially once you factor in time attack mode. Mario vs. Donkey Kong still has the Nintendo high bar of quality, but I think I wanted a bit more out of the experience than a slightly expanded version of a 20-year-old game. And even at that 20-year-old game was based off of Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy. So going back to my original, I guess, snarky opening, who is the audience for this remake? And is it worth the full $50? Obviously, talking about pricing a game like this is always going to mean different things to different people. In my experience, it's a pretty short overall time. Even going by remake standards, the Advance Wars remake contains 2 entire games on top of revamped graphics and voice acting and all of that. And Super Mario RPG hasn't been easily available since the Wii U eShop days. But that is one of the most beloved RPGs of all time, so it's easy to imagine who would play it. Mario vs. Donkey Kong doesn't exactly fit in that kind of category. On the other hand, I think remaking this era of games or making them easier to find and play is a net positive. And this remake is super slick and well done. It's a reminder that when Nintendo wants to bring out a hidden gem, they're probably going to polish it up so that it shines brightly. And hey, if you need to make a decision for yourself, there is a demo to play on the store. Play it, give it a shot. And if you like that, you'll probably enjoy the full game. I just don't know if I can warrant spending $50 on this. And hey, since they were already working on making this game better, they could have added a completion bonus. The game encourages you to complete it, and yet you get nothing for it, which is the second time they've done this for this game. This is a great Nintendo handheld title, and I would love to see the DS sequels have a new life in some capacity. So with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of finish it. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.